Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security-oriented policies to guide the state of Israel. We are a movement of more than 20,000 people, including many reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense establishment. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into these briefings. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Mordechai Kedar, who served in the IDF military intelligence for 25 years, specializing in Arab political discourse, Arab mass media, Islamic groups, and the Syrian domestic arena. Dr. Kedar teaches in the Department of Arabic at Bar Ilan University and is a research associate at the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, and of course is a member of IDSF. Dr. Kedar, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure and honor, Moshe.
We have a very important issue to discuss, as you mentioned before we began, which is the pro-Iranian militias gathering in Iraq. Can you please share with our viewers what is happening on that front?
Well, we hear once in a while that the Americans are bombing and shelling bases which are used by these militias in Iraq, in Syria as well, because in Iraq there are like 50 pro-Iranian militias. In Syria, by the way, there are like 17 of them, thousands of people ready to join a war against Israel. And there is a possibility, at least a theoretic possibility, that these militias in Iraq, and maybe in Syria as well, will try to go through Jordan, to pass through Jordan, in order to reach the Israeli border with Jordan, which is all the way from the north, near the Kinneret, in the north, all the way down to Eilat. It's more than 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers. And they might be willing to invade Israel in dozens of places, just like what Hamas did in Gaza in the morning of the October 7th. And this is a possibility which Israel should bear in mind, should be prepared for, in order to block it on its way before they come to the Israeli borders. The same thing, by the way, can happen in the Golan borders, because there are like 17 pro-Iranian militias in Syria who might plan the same thing in the Golan, and to invade the Golan and occupy Katzrin and the Israeli places in the Golan. So as long as we are dealing with Gaza and with Lebanon, we should not forget the potential problems which are in Syria and Iraq.
Now, let me ask you, if these pro-Iranian militias were to move aggressively in Jordan in order to reach the Israel border, is that something that the IDF would detect months, weeks, days in advance, or that would be kind of covert and we could get stuck at the last minute on the border?
Look, it all depends on intelligence. If the intelligence is aware of it, and they might allocate intelligence devices in order to find this, or the preparations for this action, Israel might detect it time in ahead. If Israel does not pay attention, because Israel is too much occupied with Gaza or with Lebanon, and Israel neglects the problems or the militias in Iraq and or Syria, they might surprise us again, as Hamas did on October 7th.
What is the state of deterrence on the Jordanian border? I mean, is the IDF putting troops over there? Is there an escalated level of concern? Or is this something that you're bringing up and the government is not worried about this?
The border with Jordan is viewed as a peace border with a peaceful country, which has relations with Israel. They have embassy here, and we have embassy there. Yet this border is somehow penetratable, because sometimes we have smuggling of weapons into the Judean Samaria. We actually saw one of the parliament members of Jordan who tried to smuggle hundreds of pieces of weapons, mostly pistols, to whoever in Judean Samaria. And yes, these borders are not sealed 100%, yet behind these borders there is a peaceful state. What I'm claiming is that as peaceful as Jordan can be, Jordan cannot resist, or might not even willing to resist, an invasion of 4-on-4 cars, like lines and convoys of 4-on-4 vehicles, like Toyota pickup cars, with fighters and with weapons and with ammunition and all these things. And Jordan might say, okay, we cannot resist them, we cannot fight them. They are going around with RPG, they will kill us, they will bomb us. So we refrain from messing with them, and they can have an open road to Israel. Look, all the way from the point at which they invade Jordan, all the way to Israel, it will take them, 2 hours, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. You know what? 4 hours. If Israel is not aware of it, they will be on the Israeli border in no time.
Okay, so a 4-hour window of time for these Iranian militias to overtake the Jordanian army, reach the border of Israel. Do we know the capacity of these militias, how large they are, how well they're armed, let's say in comparison to Hamas or Hezbollah?
There are thousands of people. They're trained, equipped, they have drones, they have missiles, they have vehicles, they have weapons. Iran definitely invested a lot in preparing these militias to, first of all, it started with a fight against ISIS already like 8 years ago. But they are there. They are there in order to stay there. And they might, get the idea to invade Jordan or to pass through Jordan all the way to Israel, and not in order to fight Jordan, but in order to fight Israel and to invade Israel, as Hamas did on October 7th in the morning.
Now, in terms of kind of the playbook of Iran, Hamas was the first force to attack Israel. What would cause Iran to suggest to push Hezbollah versus these militias through Jordan? Is one a priority than the other?
No. Originally, Hamas were not supposed to open a war by themselves. They should have waited to Hezbollah, to the militias in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen as well. They should have all waited until they all get an order from Iran to start an all-out war from all the fronts together, in order to bring Israel to its knees within 2 or 3 days. This was the satanic, diabolic Iranian plan. Hamas were not supposed to start a war by themselves, and actually Iran and Hezbollah and all the others were very much surprised to hear that Hamas actually opened a war against Israel. It was not supposed to be. And actually, and now when everybody is talking about the multi-front war which Iran prepared, I wrote about this last April, like 10 months ago, but it was not, let's say, in a high place in the public awareness here in Israel, unfortunately. But Hamas were not supposed to start a war because they actually destroyed the Iranian plan, because now everybody is talking about this. The IDF is recruited. Some of them are in the north, preventing a similar war in the north. And Israel evacuated many thousands of residents from the north in order not to be killed and kidnapped by Radwan force from Lebanon. So what Hamas actually did is they destroyed the Iranian plan. But now, already 4 months, and Iran and its allies are asking themselves, okay, what are we doing? Do we let Israel to eradicate Hamas altogether and thus be viewed as traitors after we equipped them, after we armed them, after we trained Hamas? Now we are abandoning them? No way. So, so what you see from Lebanon, what you see from Yemen, the missiles and the drones which are coming from Yemen, are all meant to show that these countries are also at war with Israel, although not an all-out war as Hezbollah can wage against Israel with its 150, more or less, thousand of missiles, many of them precise. They didn't use this stockpile of weapons yet. But the question is, what will happen as of today? Because today, as you might know, Hezbollah actually attacked 3 army bases in the north, causing casualties. And now the question is what Israel is doing. Does Israel broaden the war against Hezbollah, or Israel contains what happened today and continues, to have border clashes with Hezbollah as it was for the last 4 months?
Okay, I want to ask you a question on that issue of Hezbollah. But before that, just to go back to what you said about Hamas, that they jumped the gun, they didn't coordinate their attack. Clearly, they were planning this attack for many, many years. Why would they have broken with protocol, so to speak, and not worked with their Arab neighbors to attack all at once? What was in it for them?
Because they were very much worried about the advancement of the negotiations between Israel and Saudi Arabia about normalization. They were very much afraid that the timetable of Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel is actually coordinated with the Americans, who want to have this peace signed on the lawn of the White House more or less in June this year, towards the general election or the presidential elections in the United States. Hamas suspected that Iran will not start the war, the big war against Israel, until June, because as long as Biden is in the administration, the Iranians try to make the best out of it. So, and don't forget that Iran will not start such a thing against Israel as long as Iran has not yet acquired nuclear weapons. So the timetable of Hamas were much more hasty compared to the one of the Iranians. Therefore, they actually planned to start it already last April in Leila Seder, in the first evening of Passover last year. But Israel discovered it, and they postponed it because of this, and they moved it to the Chagim, to the high holidays of October. And they looked for an opportunity, and they found on October 7th, when they could capture many more Israelis who took part in this party, which was the Nova party near Kibbutz Re'im, and they actually timed it to the morning, early morning, so the kids cannot run away in the darkness. So they planned it very well. Israel was too much felt secure, although they were planning. Unfortunately, the Israeli intelligence did not have any indication about this attack, and the indications which were already were not interpreted in the right way. So we were surprised. Yet they have much bigger surprise, because Hamas expected that if they capture like 250 Israeli hostages, Israel will never dare to invade Gaza. However, Israel did it and destroyed. I am more than sure that if Sinwar knew that the results of October 7 will be what Gaza looks like today, he wouldn't do it in 1,000 years.
Now, Dr. Kedar, you are an expert on Arab society. So what you're suggesting is that Hamas had the independence, the wherewithal to break from Iran, so to speak. To what extent does that have implications in the Arab world? And to what extent potentially could Nasrallah or Hezbollah make a decision independent of their instruction from Iran?
Well, you can roughly compare it to the relations between Israel and the United States of America. Although the United States is helping Israel, supporting Israel, supplying with almost everything which we need, yet Israel has the large margin of decisions which Israel can take by itself, although the Americans are not that satisfied about this. So I think that there is a parallel situation between Iran and the others. Of course, not to go out for a war with Israel, but yet they do feel that they have some kind of freedom to do things without consulting the Iranians. By the way, Hezbollah is the same. Hezbollah is the same.
Okay, so let's go back now to Hezbollah. Do you think that it's in Israel's best interest to engage in all-out war with Hezbollah right now, or to wait for some potential diplomatic solution to come about?
Well, this question should be directed to the Israeli government. I have no idea what they plan. I don't know what is the information which they own in order to make decisions in this. And I have absolutely no idea about the international pressures to do or not to do anything with Hezbollah. So this question, I'm not able to answer because I have no idea what happens in Jerusalem in the decision-making circles.
Very fair. Very fair. Let's go back
I don't know. I don't have the information. So how can I know what to say?
Absolutely. Okay, let's go back to Gaza if we can. And you've spoken a lot about your day after suggestions, I believe, in terms of clans ruling over Gaza. Can you share that with our audience?
Well, in the Middle East, the states actually are divided roughly to two kinds of states, failing states and successful states. The failing states are Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Sudan, Libya, and maybe Algeria as well. While the successful countries are Kuwait, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, five more united with Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, Oman, and Saudi Arabia. When you ask questions, what makes the difference between the successful and the failing states, people will tell you that the oil in the Gulf is the reason. But it is wrong, because Iraq has a lot of oil, and Iraq is mayhem. Libya has a lot of oil, and Libya is a swamp of blood, tears, and fire. While Dubai, without oil and without gas, is a heaven on earth. So how can you explain it? It's not so evident. It's not the oil. The answer is the makeup of the society. In all the failing countries, the society is comprised of various groups, ethnic groups like Arabs, Kurds, Turkmens, Berbers in North Africa, tribes or clans, religions like Muslims, Christians, Alawis, Druze, and so forth, and sects like Sunnah, Shia, and all kinds of denominations within the Christian home. And the societies in these countries are not galvanized, are highly fragmented, and this is why these countries are failing states. Why? The Gulf Emirates and the Kuwait, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, and Oman, each and every one was based on the clan, one clan usually. Kuwait is the name of the clan which owns Kuwait is Al Sabah. Al is a clan. Qatar is Al Thani. Abu Dhabi is Al Nahyan. Dubai is Al Maktoum. And Saudi Arabia, lo and behold, are Al Saud. Means when you base a country, a state, on a clan, it is a stable country. Life is normal. Economy flourishes with oil or without oil. People are not fighting each other. And the state is normal state. Only because it is homogeneous. while the heterogeneous countries are failing states. As a result, what I recommend to the Israeli decision makers is to emulate the clan system, means to establish clan emirates in Judea and Samaria, in the cities of Judea and Samaria, and Gaza as well, because this is the only thing which works very well in the Middle East. Meaning, an emirate in Hebron for the clans of Hebron, another one in Jericho for the Arikat clan, which lives in Jericho, another one in Ramallah for the Barghoutis, which are the main clan of Ramallah and its vicinities, another one in Tulkarem for the Karmis, in Nablus as well, and Jenin and Kalkilia, and in Gaza, to divide Gaza to 5 emirates according to the administrative division of Gaza, from the north to the south, Betlaya, Beit Hanun. The second one is Gaza, the city. The third is Dir el-Balach. The fourth is Khan Yunis. And the fifth in the south is Rafah. And the government should be delegated to the clans, not to Hamas and not to the PA, which proved its failure in Judea and Samaria. And this is the only thing which works well in the Middle East. Clans usually are trying to achieve stability, good economy, good life, stable life. And this is why they don't look for enemies to galvanize their ranks, as it is in countries like Syria, Iraq, Libya, Sudan, Yemen, and Lebanon. And this is actually what I suggest. Unfortunately, Westerners like Israelis, Europeans, and especially Americans, they do not understand this idea, because they think from American or Western mindset according to their set of values and set of priorities, and they think that democracy can occur in the Middle East, although there is not even one real democratic country all over the Islamic and the Arab world. Okay, so this is what they advocate, a democratic country, although they don't realize that there is not even one of those democratic countries in the Arab Islamic world. This is why this idea is something which cannot work in the Middle East. Only Emirates work well, and just look at the Gulf to see how well this paradigm works. And this is what I recommend to Gaza and Judea and Samaria as well. Israel should stay in Judea and Samaria. Israel should stay forever in the rural areas in order to suggest or to offer Israeli citizenship to the villagers in order to secure or to ensure Israel's security. And this is how we can bridge between their freedom, because this way Israel actually leaves 85% of the population of Judea and Samaria to have their own emirates, and they can be citizens in their own emirates. And this way is the best way how to achieve peace and stability between us and the Palestinians. No Hamas, no Abbas, only the clans.
The ideological radicalization and the Jew hatred that we see in Gaza, that we see in Judea and Samaria, how does that translate into these Emirates countries, the countries that have these Emirates, these clans? Is there more of a favorable view of Jews, and the ones that don't have this system, is that what breeds that hatred? What's the correlation there?
The hatred against Israel was the way how to galvanize the groups under the illegal and immoral and illegitimate ages of the PA. The PA actually tried to create a legitimacy to itself by Jew hatred and by using Israel as the enemy, because they have no hold to the population, because the people are much more loyal to the clan rather than being loyal to the PA. And the PA, don't forget, was created by sin with the Israelis. And whatever is being born by sin cannot be legitimized ever in this region. Okay? So this is why the PA is illegitimate. Therefore, they are trying to create legitimacy by Jew hatred, hatred to Israel, and all you see in the public sphere in the PA. The clans are legitimate. They don't need an external enemy. They don't look for external enemy, and they will not try to turn Israel into the enemy because they don't need an enemy. They have their own legitimacy because this is how it works in the Middle East.
So looking at cities like Hebron and Yericho and Jenin, are there clans already in those locations who, in theory, if the PA were to topple, could be able to step up and govern those cities?
This is the population of these cities. Although Jenin is big different. Jenin only, the history of Jenin is different because Jenin actually was a very small village where refugees from Israel ran away in 1948, settled in this village, and the city actually grew around the refugee camp, which is in the center of the city. While in all the other cities, in Tulkarem, Kalkilia, Nablus, Ramallah, Jericho, and Hebron, the refugee camps are outside from the city, some of them closer to the city, like Balata, Askar, Gilazon, near Nablus, while others kicked the refugees far, like Hebron, who made sure that there are no less than 12 kilometers between Hebron and the refugee camp because of cultural issues. So this is what happened there. And definitely the clans are there for many, many centuries, if not decades. And definitely we can rely on them. Of course, we have to keep an open eye, an open ear, in order to hear and see what happens there. But definitely they are way much more reliable from the Israeli point of view compared to the PA and of course Hamas.
Dr. Kedar, thank you so much for entertaining all my questions. We have 1 minute left, so let me ask one final.
Let me suggest to you and to your viewers, please go to Google and Google Palestinian Emirates or Emirate solution. Palestinian Emirate solution. You'll find much material. You'll find clips. You'll find text about this. You can read. And if anyone has questions about this, please contact me by email, which is Kedar, Kedar, at newsrael.com. Newsrael, NEWSRAEL.com. Please write to me and I'll do my best to answer every question.
Dr. Kedar, thank you so much for that. We put your email in the chat, so anyone who's looking at the chat has access and can send their questions to you. This was a fascinating, enlightening conversation. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you'll come back and enlighten us further. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.